Well, good Monday morning to you, and welcome to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, located on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pash Road. Now, this show, of course, is live, and we invite you to call in and talk about our subject of the day, or if you have a question that maybe you've been holding on to for the last several days that you want to ask the doctors about, you're still more than welcome to call in and ask. Our phone lines are 896-0713 or 800-349-0713, toll free. And if you don't want to be on, talk to them on the air, you can just pass the question along to our operator, and they'll be glad to pass it along to us. But again, our phone number is 896-0713, 800-349-0713. We all at some point in time have some problems with inflammation.
Yes.
Whatever it is. Inflammation is the body's natural response to safeguard against foreign bacteria, viruses, infections, and when it senses a threat, the body will trigger the release of chemicals and white blood cells, which is our body's germ fighters. Well, sometimes with certain inflammatory conditions or autoimmune diseases, the immune system's response is inflammatory when there is no threat.
Right.
So you have to do something, take something, and you try to take something that's we know that is good for you, that won't cause you any problems, instead of something over the counter. So, and there are other,
so many of the prescription anti-inflammatories have complications. For years they've probably seen these things, that they prescribed it, for a while, and then all of a sudden you get, recalls, and, it caused heart problems and this, that, and the other. Most of those problems that with those commercial or the prescription anti-inflammatories is they block all inflammation. And there's COX-1, COX-2. And COX-1 being a good part of the inflammatory process, COX-2 being a bad part of it, and that's when it causes all the pain and so on. But if you block everything, you can cause problems. And most of the natural anti-inflammatories are something that actually systemically stops the inflammatory response that causes all the pain and swelling and so on, but doesn't break down that what we call COX-1 pathway, which can be actually beneficial to the healing process, because that's how we heal. Like you said, the things come in, we have an inflammation, and that takes care of damaged tissues or whatever, and starts building new tissues. It's all part of it. But when it turns to chronic inflammation, it's not too good.
Right, because it can be acute or chronic. Acute is when you sprain your ankle or you have an injury and it immediately swells. Well, it's trying to protect the area, trying to keep you from doing something stupid on it. Trying to tell you.
More stupid, right?
Stop.
There you go. You probably did something stupid the first place
that's right.
to mess it up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it tries to stop you. But the chronic inflammation is probably what you see causing so many health problems, because chronic inflammation has been linked to just about everything.
From heart disease, dementia, you name it.
Heart disease, cancer, autoimmune problems.
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure. There's so many things that are actually linked with inflammation. That's why we thought we would talk about some of the natural anti-inflammatories and tell people there are alternatives, because there's some people out there that can't take even your over-counter anti-inflammatories. They can't take them, whether they cause stomach problems.
There are a lot of foods
kidney problems
that cause inflammation.
Yes.
Dairy's like one of those at the top of the list.
Eating sugar, of course.
Sugar, of course.
But one of the bad ones that is a pro-inflammatory food, but we all love them: tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, eggplant.
Well, your nightshade plants.
Your nightshades.
When you talk about the nightshades, and we always tell people, if you have a huge inflammatory process going on, stay away from the nightshade plants. You want to stay away from your inflammatory foods and eat more anti-inflammatory foods.
And the tomatoes, the things like that, they don't bother me. But jalapenos, something like that, or certain peppers.
I
can't
handle them. They will. The tomato's going to bother you on a very low or not something that's direct. You eat it and you start swelling up.
Right.
But it is a pro-inflammatory food. So it does increase some inflammation slightly. And if you're trying, like she said, if you've got this really big problem going on, probably best to avoid those nightshades, the peppers, the tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes.
And down here on the coast, another thing that causes a lot of problems, inflammation, shellfish.
Well, especially if someone has gout. Now, Shellfish is not necessarily inflammatory to everybody. It's only
no. I know it's
it's
just
only
certain people.
if you can't get rid of the purines properly.
Yeah, it's not only somebody who might have an allergy to shellfish, you know, like, okay,
Well, yeah, that'll
that's
make
pretty
you swell.
obvious.
An allergy,
Yeah.
will, any
That's
food
pretty
can make
obvious.
you swell with an allergy.
But
yeah.
if you somebody that's got gout, for instance, doesn't get rid of the uric acid as efficiently as they should, and over time it builds up, and sooner or later it's going to cause you problems. It really will. But if you can't get rid of it, you know, yeah, you need to leave those things alone. And even, believe it or not, and all the gout people come in, and I always tell them, you know, that one thing you need to understand is sugar, and especially fructose, is going to increase uric acid. Oh no.
There's a lot of things that, I mean, even asparagus.
Yes.
And some of your dried beans and meat. And there's so many things you can, I mean, if you have gout, there are so many things that can increase the inflammation, and it increases those crystals, which cause a lot of pain and inflammation. So
But there's things, some of these natural anti-inflammatories really help get rid of some of that.
One of
you
the
know.
ones, and it's a food you can eat as well, is the black cherries. Black cherries has been shown to help clear uric acid. And so
You
so
don't see
has
those too often in the stores.
you don't. Well,
No.
right now they're out because it is in season.
Okay.
But it is very short season, and you don't really see those a lot when it's not.
Better
in
rush to
season.
the fruit stand.
That's it. Go now. Because, yeah.
Go get you some black cherries.
Yeah, we've even
but
found
we-
a few organic ones lately.
Yeah, exactly. We even found some of those. Those are pretty cool too. But you know, there is a cherry extract, and we use it a lot, especially in the folks that have the gout
Gout.
or high uric acid. You know, we use the black cherry extract. It works really great. Good anti-inflammatory, and helps clear that that uric acid out of the bloodstream.
What about cranberries? I mean, for you hear often of women with UTIs. They say drink cranberries. I mean, that's an inflammation.
Right, but that's a little
I'm sure.
bit different.
It's a
That
little
actually
different.
keeps the bacteria from adhering to the walls.
Okay.
So it works a
Okay.
little differently than the other anti-inflammatories like black cherry.
Okay.
But the black cherry can help anybody with arthritis, not just gout. But it is a good
Wow.
anti-inflammatory.
Right.
I can always tell when I don't eat tons of fruit, but when those are in season, I do eat them, and I can tell a difference in my joints.
Really?
I always say it keeps the stiffness down. So it really does make a difference on what foods you eat. And just like last week, we talked about fish. And
Yeah,
that is one of
omega-3s.
your
Omega-3s,
that's one of your
yeah.
biggest anti-inflammatory foods.
That EPA is a huge anti-inflammatory. It really is.
Okay. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you. If you have a question for the doctors this morning, we invite you to give us a call. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition. They're located on Cowan Road, south of Pass Road. They're open Monday through Saturday. Monday through Friday, they're open from 10 to 5:30. Saturdays, 11 till 2. Jim and Janine are there Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and Dr. Mays is there on Wednesdays and Fridays. And of course, if you need to get some blood work done, they can do it there for you as far as taking the blood sample. And the great thing about going there, you don't need an appointment, and there's no charge for consultation.
Right.
That's true.
Go to a regular doctor and try that. Someone called in and asked about tendonitis, inflammation.
I mean,
It
it is a form. Yeah, I mean, anything that ends in itis, okay,
Means inflammation.
inflammation.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's Latin for inflammation. So if you have gastritis,
Bronchitis.
bronchitis,
Anything that's inflammation.
tendinitis, and
Wow.
So then
now-
it tells you how many things are inflammation.
right.
Yeah.
You kind of see the point, right?
Exactly.
Now, tendinitis is something that Janine, you're
Yeah, well-
you're the athletic trainer. Tell
Yeah.
us.
Well, it's actually inflammation of the tendon, which is what tendinitis means, is the tendon gets inflamed. And the tendon has very little blood supply, so it's really hard to heal a tendon. There are natural anti-inflammatories that we use for tendinitis that work very well. One is bromelain, and bromelain is an enzyme from a pineapple. Now, eating pineapple doesn't give you as much of it because most of the bromelain comes from the core, which is what people don't eat. It's what they throw away, where the hole in the middle of the pineapple. So, but you still get a little bit from pineapple, but actually the bromelain is much more concentrated. So it's a really good anti-inflammatory, and it's an enzyme that can eat up inflammation. Also, now tendinitis is almost always from a repetitive use. Anytime somebody uses a joint over and over and over, or a job that you're doing the same motion with the arm, or like your wife,
Yeah.
it can actually increase. So I always try to get people to also change how they do their job if that is what's causing it. You got to look at what motion you do constantly and maybe try to modify that motion, because if you keep having that repetitive, it's actually, it actually irritates, I should say irritates. It doesn't really damage, but irritates that tendon.
Well, if it's left and go, it'll
If
damage
yeah, it will
it'll
damage it. It will damage it
eventually.
if you left. I mean, so bromelain's one of them. We have any of our natural anti-inflammatories you can use on tendinitis. So you have like I said, we talked about bromelain. There is curcumins, which curcumins, I mean, huge thing.
Comes from your turmeric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is so much research on that, whether it be for regular inflammation or whether it be for chronic disease or whether it be for cancer prevention. A study just came out this week on using it with milk thistle for colon cancer. So, I mean, there's so many things, that actually the curcumins do. So then you have, I mean, there's white willow bark.
I was going to say, for a lot of people that, they talk about aspirin, it's an old Indian thing, they would chew the willow bark. And it really works because it has some natural salicylates in it, which are, when you go down to the store and buy aspirin, you're buying a synthetic salicylate.
Right.
Okay, so it's made synthetically. Reduces inflammation, though, no
It
doubt
does.
about it.
No, it's pretty quick for inflammation. But
that willow
again,
bark works very well.
If you're allergic to aspirin and allergic to salicylates, you probably are going to be allergic to white willow bark as well. So we do tell people if you have an aspirin allergy, you do not want white willow bark. If you have an aspirin allergy, you can take almost every other anti-inflammatory that's natural. And the boswellia or frankincense. People have heard of it being called frankincense, boswellia, same thing. Boswellia is another anti-inflammatory. Ginger is an anti-inflammatory. So there's so many things that are anti-inflammatory in natural medicine, but if somebody comes in with like tendinitis, normally we'll start them with the bromelain. That's probably the first. And then if that doesn't quite do it, we might add the Phyto-4, which is a combination of your curcumin, boswellia, ginger, and a really fast-acting supplement called perluxin or hops extract. And it does not have the calming effects of the hops. It's actually the ingredient that just helps as a fast-acting anti-inflammatory.
And pain relief. It really blocks substance P, which is pain, very, very effectively. So it's really good. I think your wife takes that, right?
Yeah,
The
she takes
bromelain?
and
No,
Phyto-4.
the Phyto-4.
Yeah, she takes bromelain and Phyto-4 because she has, as you said, repetitive motion. What she does for her job.
Right.
And she had problems with her arm and everything all the time, and she started on that stuff, and man, she loves it.
Oh yeah, it makes a
really
huge
works.
difference.
It really
Huge
does.
difference.
Jackie from Gulfport's on the phone with a question about high blood pressure, I believe. Good morning, Jackie. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I take like 6 pills a day for just blood pressure and still can't get it regulated. What can I do to help that?
Wow, you got a lot of stuff going on there. One of the biggies in all the research on blood pressure is magnesium. And something like, 95% of the population shows to be deficient in magnesium. So that would be probably one of the first things that I would look at.
But if you have that much blood pressure problem where 6 medications is not controlling it, I would say you definitely need the lab work.
Oh, yeah.
We've had people come.
I take 3 in the daytime and 3 at night.
Okay. Well, we've had people that come in and there's underlying problems that's increasing that blood pressure, whether it be the stress hormone, whether it be a mild thyroid problem, whether it be a vitamin D deficiency, because vitamin D deficiency can actually affect blood pressure.
Sure
So there's so many things that could affect that blood pressure. Coming to get our expanded panel would be the best thing for you, because then you could fix your specific underlying problems, because there's a lot of people that what may be causing it in you is not what's causing it in the next person. So we try to be more individual and try to find the actual underlying problems. So that's what I would suggest. I had a gentleman that came in probably within a year ago. He was on 5 blood pressure medications. And he worked with his cardiologist, because his cardiologist is who recommended he do something different. He said, something's got to change. So we started basically a big change in his diet and controlling his sugar better. And honestly, his cardiologist got him down to like 1 medication, 1 or maybe 2 medications instead of 5 now. And his blood pressure runs about 110/70. So you can change it with diet changes, weight loss, and fixing underlying problems.
Right. Whatever those underlying problems
Whatever that
are.
might be.
And if I may make a suggestion, this is something that y'all actually suggested to a friend of mine to do, is do a diary of what you eat, a food diary for a week. Do a food diary for a week, bring it in, let them look at it, and they can point out, okay,
what you might be doing wrong.
You're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, and that'll really help you out there. And of course they do have low glycemic diet that
Right.
you can start on, but you still eat some great
Because
food.
one of the things that we hear constantly from people is, well, I have a great diet. And then you say, well, what do you eat? What do you eat for breakfast? Everything they name is sugar. I mean, it's like every single thing that's named. I'm like, you really don't have as good a diet as you think you do. So that's why if you do a food diary, we can see exactly what you're eating, because a lot of people can't remember what they eat, of
Right.
course, regularly.
Right.
And so that definitely is easier for us to look at and tell you what you might be doing wrong with your diet. Because diet makes a difference. I mean, we always say lifestyle is number one to work with first, and then you can use supplementation to help in addition.
And
But
you can
always
really,
wanna
like I said,
change.
you can really still eat good. Like last night, I mean, I do probably 80% of the cooking at home.
Yeah.
And my wife loves that. So last night, made up a big salad.
Yeah.
I mean, I cut up some green onions and put
Right.
them there, tomatoes, and also did some grilled chicken breast.
Yeah.
You know, just sauteed some grilled chicken in a skillet. And that was
that
our
would be a
dinner.
really good meal.
And that
Good
was
meal.
you know really good meal for
Yeah.
us. And then this morning for breakfast I had 2 hard-boiled eggs and some milk.
Yep.
Of course I had the organic milk.
Because you're trying to get back on track.
Yes I am. Yes I am.
Because he had lost,
I had lost about 15 pounds and then I
and
got
then
off track.
he started doing what he was doing before. I always tell people, when you lose it, if you go back to what you were doing before, you're going to gain it back.
And I did. So I'm working on it again. We're going to take a break. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open. We'll be back in a minute with this week's special for you. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition on Cowan Road in Gulfport. Let's get right to the phones. Kenyatta from Biloxi is on the phone with us with a question about migraines. Good morning, Kenyatta.
Good morning.
Go ahead with your question for the doctors.
Yes, I've been going to the doctor for about 2 years now for migraines, and I'm on 9 medications, and nothing is working. So I want to know what was good to help that.
Well, we actually have a product called Migranol, and it is a preventative for migraines, not really a treatment. So you don't really take it when you get a migraine, you take it all the time for prevention. And it does contain something called feverfew, which is another anti-inflammatory, but it actually works specifically more on headaches. And it does help with allergies some too, but it has your magnesium, it has your B2. There's a lot of nutrients that's been shown to actually affect migraines. So that's the one thing I would do, would be the Migranol. And another thing, sometimes chiropractors can actually help with migraine headaches. If it's coming from the neck, you'd have to be evaluated to see if it looked like it might be coming from the cervical area. If it is, then going to a chiropractor may help. So we can refer you to someone because we don't do that part of it anymore. But it can actually be beneficial. If you come by the store, we can see what we, maybe ask you some more questions, find out what might be causing your migraines.
Because there's something, that a lot of the research that's come out in the past couple of years links the gut to migraines.
Right, that's true.
So, it's inflammation in the gut, and that can be some of the foods and stuff. So if they're having, there's that possibility as well. So, maybe there'd be some dietary choices and changes made too. So.
All right. Thanks for the call, Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Clifford from Moss Point is on the phone with us now with a question regarding spinal stenosis. Good morning, Clifford. What's your question for the doctors?
Yes, I've got 5 herniated discs in my lower back, and then I have spinal stenosis all the way up to my neck. I've already had 3 MRIs, and I have pain management, and the pain pills don't really seem to work, and I'm just looking for something I don't have to worry about, getting addicted to or something.
Right.
And so the best for I'm hearing from y'all.
Well, the thing about spinal stenosis, Clifford, is, that's a narrowing of the spinal canal. And, like I said, it can come from things like arthritis. It can come from things like the disc that you've got and narrowing, that spinal canal. So that's a mechanical problem. Now, it creates inflammation. And it's like we talked about this morning. It creates inflammation. And there's things that you can take that will help. Nothing's going to make it go away. Unfortunately, I have that problem myself, so I understand it. But there's things that'll help. I mean, even though we have it.
Even though he has it, and he has a pretty severe, back problems.
Yeah.
He takes all natural stuff. There's nothing he takes that's prescription.
Believe me, I take a boatload of stuff.
And
because
he still can dig in the yard, not that he should, but he still does.
Because you remember earlier we talked about doing stupid stuff. Well, okay, I'm
he does a lot
guilty.
of stupid stuff, but
it helps.
There's a lot, even to something called systemic enzymes can
Right.
actually help with some of that. Like you said, you're not going to actually get rid of the problem. It's more about managing the symptoms and managing the pain.
That's it.
We have something called Phyto Ultra Comfort. We have Phyto 4.
Right.
We have the systemic enzymes, the bromelain, which he takes them all. I mean, he actually,
seriously.
honestly, he takes every anti-inflammatory we have. But he has to in order to keep his back to where he can keep going and he can actually still live a normal life and he can still get out in the yard, work in the yard, and still do what he wants to do.
And I don't take any of the
Right.
typical pain medications and so on because, like you said, Clifford, they're addictive for one, which
And they
is not
don't
good.
work real well.
And they get to where they don't work as well because you kind of adapt to them. So that's
And a
that's
lot,
the thing.
lot of your pain medication doesn't get rid of inflammation,
No.
which is really what's causing a lot of the pain to begin with.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, like I said, can't take ibuprofen.
It just masks it. Just masks
Yeah,
the
I
pain.
mean, yeah, essentially. It kind of blocks it, a little bit.
Because he can't take ibuprofen, it
No.
makes his heart rhythm off. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and that can happen. So you have people that can't take the anti-inflammatories, but he can take all the natural ones. So we have a lot of those. If you come in, we can show you the different ones we
yeah.
have.
All right, thanks for the call, Clifford. Matter of fact, bromelain is one of the specials
Yes.
that's going.
It really
And
is.
so is
offering
Phyto
this week.
4.
Yep.
So,
Phyto
yeah,
4.
so is Phyto 4.
The Phyto 4 that we talked about.
These are my two standbys.
Yeah, the Phyto 4, which is a combination of the hops, which is fast acting, like kind of your natural ibuprofen, if you will.
Almost,
It
yeah.
has the boswellia, curcumin, and ginger. And then you have the bromelain, which is the enzyme from pineapple. And both of them are very effective for anti-inflammatory and for pain. So, like I said, nothing might not, a lot of problems can't be fixed, but if you can get the inflammation down, you can help a lot of the pain.
Yeah, it's just like Clifford, when you're talking about that spinal stenosis, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's unfortunately.
Unfortunately, most, like I say, I've had mine, you probably have too, but you had your MRIs and so on, and they look at your spine, and when they put the films up, like, ooh, it's not a good sign. You know that, all right, we're in trouble here now, because they can't, some of it is, especially when you got, like he's talking about from one end to the other of the spine, you can't go in there and cut everything out.
No.
So, we have to learn to live with it, and there's a lot of things that I've had to change.
And discs, if it's mild, you can actually get a disc to where it's asymptomatic.
You can do some of that,
A third
yeah.
of all people probably have a disc problem and don't even know it with no pain. So
Exactly.
discs do not always cause pain, but they can cause a whole lot of pain. So I'm not saying they don't cause pain because they can, but you can also getting the inflammation down there helps as well.
It certainly does.
Because inflammation usually results in pain.
Yeah.
So
Sooner
when
or
we're
later.
talking about
And pain
inflammation,
hurts.
you're
And
talking
pain
about pain.
hurts, right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, again, if you, my wife will tell you right off that the Phyto 4 and the bromelain
yeah.
together, it's really helped. She has no problem with the inflammation. Besides what she does at work, and then she also does some crocheting
Yeah.
from time to time.
Which is
Again,
still a
repetitive
repetitive
Hand and
motion.
everything.
Repetitive motion.
Repetitive motion. So, and she does not have any issue with it.
We've actually had some people on that Phyto 4, that were taking the heavy duty pain meds and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And, and they come in and say, Doc, have you got anything? I said, well, I've got this. I'm not real sure about it. I'd give them a sample. And they'd come back the next day, so I got to have it.
Yeah.
I said, does it work that well? Well, it helped. And so if any help, it's sort of like if any help at
Like
all.
I said, some of your natural anti-inflammatories take a few weeks to work. The
Right.
hops extract in the Phyto 4
Works
is pretty
quick.
fast acting.
Yeah.
So they say it can actually help in your first dose.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, next week, of course, it kicks off a brand new month, and of course, at the first Monday of the month, we always have Open Line Monday.
It's going to be Christmas here soon.
You had to go there.
I know. We had to go.
Anyway, so next week again, Monday morning will be our Open Line Monday. So you can call in and ask the doctors anything that you want to regarding living a healthier lifestyle. That's what this show is entirely about, is to live healthy and be healthy. Of course, the doctors will be in this morning at 10 o'clock, and they are open Monday through Friday. Monday through Saturday. And they're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5:30, Saturday 11 to 2. They're there. Go by and see them.
There you
Y'all
go.
have a great day.